Hey everybody, welcome back to the Lion Turtle Podcast. I'm Sal.
And I'm Christy.
And here we like to talk about travel. I am excited about today's episode. Today is going to be a big, meaty episode.
It might get a little long. It might get a little really into the details, real nerdy.
A little nitty, a little gritty.
Yeah, you might want to pay attention to this one because there's going to be quite a bit of detail.
Yeah, there's a lot of information. But before we jump into it, I want to say thank you for all of the listener responses, all of the reviews, all the shares, all the likes. It's awesome. Please keep it coming.
Yes.
If you enjoy the episode, share it, leave a like, leave a review if you're listening on Anchor or YouTube or wherever.
iTunes, Spotify.
Yeah, it's just appreciated. And in fact, it's because of a listener question is the first part of this episode.
One of our listeners asked if we could clarify a little bit more on the Chase 524 rule. So Chase 524 means if you have opened 5 cards or more, so it's not more than 5, it is 5 or more in the last 24 months, they are not going to approve you for another card. 5 cards with any bank, any credit card issuer. So it could be any bank, it could be a store retail card for the most part. Just assume that a retail card is going to count. There might be 1 or 2 here that don't. And then
it's a rolling 24 months.
Yes.
So if you open something like March 2018, well, that's going to be March 2020 before that one doesn't count anymore.
And even if you closed it, it still counts.
Okay. Yeah.
So you opened it and you closed it a year later, it doesn't matter, it still counts. And American Express charge cards, most retail cards, pretty much all of them, and then a few business cards, such as the Capital One and Discover business cards. Those also count towards your 5 cards. If you are an authorized user on somebody else's card, so sometimes when we open a card, Sal adds me as an authorized user so I can have my own card, and that helps us meet the spend faster. Now, yes, they count that when they're looking at it, but it's not supposed to count. So what you can do is call Chase and be like, hey, can you reconsider my application, because I think that you're counting me as an authorized user and counting that against me, and more often than not they'll go back and look at it and you'll actually get approved.
Again, if you have a question, let us know and we'll try to include it and answer your question in the show. But the first thing, or the second thing, I guess, that we want to talk about today is an update on our trips. So we have some updates for our road trips. We have some updates for our trip to Thailand. So it's going to be really cool. The road trip update, I'm excited to say that we have booked almost all of our Airbnbs and coming in under budget. We've arranged accommodations in a couple of places where, we don't have to pay for it. We've changed things a little bit, but so far the road trip is coming together pretty nicely.
Yeah, we have all the Airbnbs from San Antonio to San Diego. Those are booked. And we had a budget, and, we still wanted to save some money. So maybe we took a place that was a little bit smaller or a little bit further out from the main area. But overall, that's going to help save us money. And that way we have more money to spend on the trip too.
Yeah, so that was kind of what we were weighing. So I'm excited about that. The update with the Thailand, not a big update, but we did spend this week, and it's a good tip for you guys going over our passenger information on AmericanAirlines.com. We learned this the hard way the last time we went to Scotland, because I was solely responsible for passenger information, and I put Christy's wrong birthday into the passenger information. So because of that, she was not able to utilize her TSA pre-check.
Right.
And she was really mad at me about that.
Well, let me go ahead and explain what happened here. Okay, so we have global entry, which automatically gives us TSA pre-check. And, let's go ahead and say what that means, right?
Okay. Yeah, so TSA is domestic.
Yes.
Yeah, so TSA is domestic. You get to go in. If you notice, there's always 2 lines. So the second line that's shorter is TSA pre-check. That's for domestic flights. If you paid the fee and you've answered the security questions stuff, all of this, way before you got to the airport, you can basically go through this really short expedited line. Global entry is the same thing, but when you're coming back to the United States from international travel.
Yes.
And if you qualify for global entry, you automatically get the TSA.
And that just means when you're going through the line, you don't have to take off your shoes.
Yep.
You don't have to take off your belt. Usually don't have to take out the laptop from the backpack. If you have like the small bag that they allow with like the liquids, if you're carrying some hygiene stuff, you don't even have to take that out. If you're wearing like a jacket or like a shirt over, something else, You don't have to take that off. It's just like pretty much
way
you can
better.
go through.
Yeah.
Okay,
way
so
better.
our story then was, since Sal entered my birthday wrong, I wasn't granted TSA pre-check on this trip. And, well, my carry-on, my backpack is full of camera gear and my laptop and all this stuff. And I was wearing, like, a light jacket.
Holes in the socks and everything.
And so, I mean, that meant I had to go with the regular people in the regular line. And it was like, what the heck? I had to, like, take everything off. And it's just, like, a hassle, especially with all my stuff in the backpack. And so when we got to the next place, when we had a connecting flight, I told Saul, you're taking my backpack because this is crazy. I got to take everything out. So we switched backpacks.
That helped a little bit. That helped a little bit.
Yeah, that way all my stuff didn't have to be taken out because it takes longer and you get flagged. And so, yeah, make sure your information is entered correctly when you're booking your flight. And
so this time we did it together. We did it together.
Then we triple checked.
Yeah, we triple checked. I entered everything as she read it. Then we swapped the computer and the documents, and then she reread it, and then we swapped again. So just triple check. But that's the update on Thailand. And I'm still really excited about both of these trips.
Yeah, not much of an update. We're still working on planning all that stuff. And so we got TSA pre-check and global entry as a benefit from the Chase Sapphire Reserve card. So stay tuned to the end of the episode. We're going to do a review of that card. We told you guys about why we like the Chase Sapphire Preferred.
As a recommendation.
But now we're also going to tell you, well, why the Reserve is also a good card. So we'll do that at the end of the episode. Yeah. For now, we're going to keep moving along. So what's up next, Al?
So the point of this episode is to answer a common question that we encounter when we talk to people about opening cards and kind of travel hacking and trying to use, benefits to pay for other benefits to get you wherever you want to go. And that question is, how is this going to affect my credit? How is this affecting your credit? It doesn't mess up your credit if you have 3 credit cards open, 4 credit cards, 15 credit cards open.
Isn't opening credit cards bad?
Yeah, isn't credit cards bad? And so the short answer is no. The long answer is probably not, especially if you know what you're doing and you understand how your credit is figured. So that's going to be the point of this episode. We're going to go over different portions that affect your credit, how your credit score is calculated, and kind of relate each of those to the idea of, well, what if I'm opening 1 or 2 cards a year? How are each of these sections affected by, affecting my credit score? So the first thing that we're going to talk about is payment history. Mm-hmm. So Christy will go over payment history with you.
Right. So, your credit score is like this pie, and each category takes up a bigger piece of the pie. And so the biggest piece of the pie is your payment history. Mm-hmm. Do you have late payments? That's really going to hurt you. So basically the rule here is make your payments on time. If you have multiple cards or, even your like home loan, auto loan, stuff like that, that's going to hurt.
Any line of credit that you're using. It's like 35% of your score is when they look at your payment history on stuff. They look at, like Christy said, mortgages, student loans, car loans, credit cards. But they're looking for late payments. They don't care about the size of the payment.
Right.
They just care that you make the payment.
That's true. That's important because I know like when I was 20, 21 years old and I wanted to buy clothes and all this stuff, I had an Express card and it didn't help that I was also working there. And so, the minimum payment for those cards is like $15. I remember that. But still, I even wouldn't pay $15 and it would be late. And I thought, well, it won't be a big deal. But, little did I know then that it still hurts you and it's a big part of your credit score that gets hurt. So if you want to improve your credit score or you don't want to hurt it, just make those payments on time.
So to codify that, a minimum payment is better than no payment.
Yes.
And so what we do actually, because we have a bunch of different cards, right? To make sure that we don't get trapped by that or get hurt by that, is I actually set every single one of our cards to automatically pay the minimum payment on the card every month. Now, granted, I pay on our cards weekly, but if for some reason I don't check a card or maybe there was a charge on a card that we didn't move to a new card or something like that, like a light bill or water bill or whatever, I'm at least paying the minimum payment. And I hate paying the minimum payment because you'll pay some interest, but you know what? I'd rather pay a little bit of interest and make sure that I'm paying my stuff on time and saving that 35% of my credit score, like making sure it looks good, than not paying it. And then now you're hurting your credit. You're paying late fees. You're paying interest. It's terrible. Yeah. So that's one of the things I do. The other thing I do to help us out on that is I have a spreadsheet of all the cards I have open. And so one of the columns on my spreadsheet is actually not just the due date of when payments are due on that card, because it's always the same day that your payments will be due, but also when is the last time I logged on to check that card. So every time I log in, I look at a card, I'm like, oh, let me go to my spreadsheet and update. Okay, I looked at it on February 28th. That way, when I'm looking at my spreadsheet, I can sort or whatever and like, oh, wow, I haven't looked at that card in like 8-9 days. Let me log in and check it. It's not only good to make sure you're making your payments on time, but also to make sure there's no activity going on a card that there shouldn't be activity going on. So those would be my tips for
and
keeping
just
that
real
safe.
quick, because you did mention it, how you said, well, if anything, at least make the minimum payment, even though that might mean you have some interest. So I know on a past episode we said you don't want to get any interest, and that's still true.
That is true.
You don't want any interest, but if we're kind of weighing like the two evils here, it's better to at least make that minimum payment.
Yeah.
So at all, you want to avoid interest and you want to avoid late payments, but if like it's going to be one or the other, make that payment at least a minimum and don't get that late payment.
So how does that answer the question of won't opening a card hurt my credit? Won't opening 2 cards hurt my credit? Well, the answer when it comes to your late payments is no, as long as you're making your payments, right? So a credit card's not going to hurt your credit as long as you're making your payments on time, or even with your car loan or your house loan or whatever. So make your payments, right? So that's a little misconception people sometimes have.
So let's go and move on to the next category that could potentially affect your credit score.
And that would be credit utilization. Now, I have trouble saying the word utilization. So I always call it like a credit to debt ratio, just because it's easier for me to say. But a lot of places you'll see it as credit utilization.
Credit utilization. So it just means how much of the credit limit are you using, or how much do you owe out of all of the credit that is available to you.
Yeah, and that's like 30% of your score. So we were looking at 35% for payment history. 30% of your score is credit utilization.
So that's already 65%. That's half of your credit score.
Just on the first two things. More than half. More than half.
Yeah.
So how do you conceptualize it? Okay, say Christy applies for a card and she's approved for a maximum credit limit of $3,000, and she carries a regular balance. Oh, I always carry a $500 balance on my card. Because that people think that, right? Like, oh, I should just carry a little balance on a card to keep it active or keep it good. Carrying a little balance helps my credit. That is not true.
Right.
That is not true. If you carry a balance on your card, what happens is the credit bureaus look at that and see, okay, this person was approved for $3,000 and they're always carrying $500 or $1,000. To them, it looks like you have to use that card and you always have to, you're constantly living in debt. Right? And that doesn't look good to the credit card bureaus. So you want to keep your credit utilization low. Keep your balances at zero. Keep them close to zero. Not only are you avoiding interest and you're making sure you're making your payments on time, because that's the only way to keep those cards low, but you're giving yourself a better credit to debt ratio.
Yeah. So the less amount of credit that you use of what's available to you, the better. You use all of it or always have maxed out cards. Well, that doesn't look good. And so
it's cumulative too, right?
Right. And so when we were discussing this, like I had a little light bulb go off in my head, because I was like, wait, because, sometimes you go to the store and they say, if you buy this or get this credit card, you're going to get 24 months interest free, or you don't have to make a payment until this date.
Yeah.
And you think, oh, that's a great deal. It gives me time to pay it off and stuff like that. But remember this credit utilization thing, because then that means you're carrying a balance for that TV that you bought at Best Buy. That's going to be on your credit score. You're using that credit that was given to you. And if it was a $5,000 TV or something, then that might hurt your credit score.
Especially if it's your only card. Because it's cumulative, right? So if you get approved for, say you get approved for $5,000 on a card and you max it out, you're at 100%.
Yeah.
Now let's say you have another card for say you have 2 cards, each one can carry up to 5,000, and one of them is maxed out. You're still at 50%. So it's cumulative. They look at all of your available credit and all of the debt you're holding on cards. And the bigger that amount is of debt that you're holding compared to the available credit, the more it's going to hurt your score. So
if we're answering the question, does this hurt my credit score? Well, it could actually help.
Right.
Because you open a new card, that means you have more credit available. So that extra credit available might shrink your credit utilization percentage, but you don't want to just use it all, because then that could hurt it.
Yeah, so that's like, you get approved for a card, don't max it out.
Yeah, so just opening a card isn't going to hurt your credit score. It's maxing it out that will, because it could actually help.
And that's actually something like as a note to that, let's say if you're listening to this podcast or you're watching this episode and you're thinking, well, how can I start building up my credit? Maybe you can apply for a card with your local credit union. And if you get approved, because sometimes the local credit unions, especially if you bank there, they'll approve you. Yeah, you get the card. Just don't use it, especially if it's a zero fee. You can open it, don't use it, just monitor it, make sure. And yeah, you're automatically going to help your credit by having that available credit to you. But if they decline you, you can always go to like a Best Buy or a Lowe's, and they're very, very lax with their credit. And the reason is because they expect you to open the card and then max it out for that $5,000 TV or, that new water heater or something. So those are always places that you can go to try to apply for a card. And if you get approved, great. Just remember, just don't use it. If you don't have to, don't use it. And you'll increase your credit. You'll have a better credit utilization score at that point. So just kind of a tip to think about how you can use cards to help manipulate your credit score and improve it.
And another thing on that, isn't that also like the snapshot of that credit utilization?
Yeah. So, yeah, that's actually a really good point. So what I do with our cards is, remember, I always say it, right? Oh, Sal's always saying he pays his cards weekly. Okay, yeah, I know. But one of the things about it is on my spreadsheet that I mentioned, I also have what day of the month is the last day of the billing cycle.
When the statement closes.
Yeah, because you'll get your statement, and your statement will have the activity dates, right? Maybe it's from the 29th of the month to the 28th of the next month. If you have a balance on your card when the statement closes, that's a snapshot of what that balance is, and that's what gets sent to the credit bureaus. So I always try and make sure I make a payment just before the end of the statement balance. And what that does is that pays down my balance. So when they take a snapshot of it and send it to the credit bureaus, then it's going to make my credit utilization look better. Because they don't care if I paid off the full balance the day after the statement closed. They don't. They care about what my balance was on that day.
Right.
So if you're working to improve your credit, be aware of that and try and time your payments correctly.
Because if you paid it afterwards, yes, it's true you paid it off, but to the credit card bureaus, that means your credit utilization is still high.
Because they're looking at that
from
day.
When they look at it, yeah.
Yeah, so that's that. I thank you very much for bringing that up. That's just something to keep in mind. And if you're trying to work on your credit and stuff like that, that's a good thing to remember. Just time your payments appropriately.
All right, so category number 3.
Average age of accounts. This is 15% of your credit score.
Yes. So it's not as much, 15%. So that just means how long you've had these credit cards open. And so it's an average of all the cards. So maybe you have one card for 10 years and then you just opened a card 2 years ago.
Right.
So 12
average it out.
Divided by 2, your average age.
6.
Yeah.
Yes. Me no math no good. So the average age of accounts, they're going to look at not just your credit card accounts though. They'll look at how long you've had a car loan, how long you've had your mortgage. And it's the average age. But then during that average age, they're looking at to see if you have any late payments, right? They're seeing if the installment loans, like your mortgages and stuff, if those balances are consistently going down. And then they're looking to see how long you've had those accounts open. So that's why I really like no annual fee cards. Because I have a Best Buy card and I have a Lowe's card. We barely ever use them for anything.
Yeah.
But I leave them open because leaving them open and they have 0 annual fee is giving me so much of a benefit. The first part is that 30% I'm getting out of it with, having that available credit from that card. And then the second part is I've had those cards open for so many years that it's increasing my average age of accounts. Yeah. And so it's pushing my score up.
So when somebody is trying to fix their credit, clean up their credit, make it better, they think like, oh, that means I got to go close all my cards. No, that's not true. I mean, you want to pay it off.
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean now go close them all.
Yeah.
Because you're going to shrink that average age. And so it's actually better to leave them open as long as, like Sal said, there's no fee or there's no fee for having it open or whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, leave it open.
It can be a kind of a double whammy, right?
Yeah.
You're reducing your available credit and you're reducing your average age of accounts. So it's complicated. And that's why that's the point of this episode.
So on the flip side of that, right? So it's like, okay, well, it's hurting my credit. So if I open a new card, that means my average age is going to change. So remember, yes, it hurts it when you open and close, but it's only, what did we say? 15%.
It's only 15%. So think about it.
Yeah.
If you're opening a new card, it's affecting it, negatively 15% because it's reducing your average age of accounts. But then you have that 30% positive because now you've increased your available credit. Everything's related, right? So you give a little bit here, but you gain a little bit there. And so if you're maintaining those cards, those on timely payments, you're carrying low balances or preferably no balances, then it's really not that big of a deal to open a new card, or 2 new cards a year or something like that.
So this average age category kind of is where we would answer is, okay, well, I opened the card, I got the bonus, I got the points that I wanted. Now, should I cancel it because next, month or two, my annual fee is coming up? Should I cancel the card?
And in that, it depends.
Right. So if there's no fee, don't cancel it. I mean, there really is no reason to cancel it if there's no fee. If you have a fee, then you look at the benefits of the card and you say, well, do the benefits that this card offers offset the annual fee? And then, maybe I'll keep it because I'll probably use those benefits. And then that means I don't change my average age of accounts and I don't change my overall credit utilization. And so you just kind of have to weigh everything. Like Sal said, they all interrelate in how they affect your score. But this average age one is only 15%.
Yeah. A good example of a card benefit that maybe you'd want to keep is like we have a Chase Hyatt card. And that's a $95 annual fee for that card. We never use it except once a year. It gives us 1 free night a year at any Hyatt in the world. So the last time when we flew to Scotland, we were at DFW. We were Dallas Fort Worth Airport, and we had to stay there overnight. And so there's a Hyatt in the airport, and so we used that free night to stay at that Hyatt, and it was like a $500 room. So we paid $95 to keep that card open, and that card gave us a $500 room to stay in overnight at DFW. So in a way, we got paid to use that card. So it's just something to keep in mind. It's definitely worth it sometimes.
And if it does have a fee and there's no benefits, for whatever reason, there's no benefits you're not going to use, sure, go ahead and cancel it. It's not going to be that big of a hit on your card. As long as you're not like closing out 5 cards all at once.
Yeah, that's the thing. So you just kind of got to weigh it and time things correctly. So we are at 35% plus 30% is 65 plus 15% puts us at 80.
80.
I think that's how you math.
Okay. So our next one is credit inquiries, which takes up 10% or affects 10% of your credit card score. Yeah. Not credit card score, your overall credit score.
Your overall credit. So what is an inquiry? An inquiry is just when you're applying for credit. And there's 2 kinds. There's hard and soft inquiries, right?
Yes. Hard and soft inquiries or pulls, so a hard inquiry or a pull is whenever you apply for a line of credit, a car loan, home loan, a credit card. Those are going to be hard pulls on your credit, and they do stay on your credit for 2 years, but it takes about a 5-point hit on your credit score.
So it's not much. It's 10%, takes a little hit. One thing that's a common misconception from people when they're like shopping around for a note or a loan, like say you're shopping around for a car note or a home loan, is, oh man, I don't want to apply with my credit union and I don't want to apply at the car dealership for 2 different auto loans because I don't want to mess up my credit. Keep in mind that the bureaus understand sometimes people shop out loans because you're trying to find the best interest rate with the best payment terms.
Right.
So if you have like 3 or 4 hard pulls in a month for say an auto loan, and then towards the end of that month, you actually get an auto loan, the bureaus are going to count those 3 or 4 as one pull. And that's because they understand you were out shopping out rates. You were shopping out payment terms. Don't be dissuaded or from shopping things out for better rates or better terms because, oh no, it affects 10% of my credit. Not really.
And there's 3 bureaus, Experian, TransUnion, and Equifax. So when you apply for something, they don't pull or hit all 3 of them. When you do it.
Yeah, it's always different.
Yeah, it might pull from one or the other. And so when you look at your credit score at Experian, it might be one thing. And then at TransUnion, it could be a little bit higher or lower because maybe the pulls were taken from this one and not that one. And so your score can vary depending on which one you're looking at.
And this leads back to what we're saying, how it's all kind of interconnected. So yeah, maybe inquiries are affecting 10%. But then now you're building 35% better on your credit because you're having a card with on-time good payments, right? Or a new line of credit with on-time good payments. And then another 30% because you've increased your available credit, but you're not carrying a huge balance. Yeah. So it's helping you with 65% of your score, but that one inquiry, maybe reduced it through 10%. So it's all connected. But if you're living by the idea of make your payments on time, a minimum payment's better than no payment, and keep your balances at 0 or close to 0 as possible. And, time your payments before the end of the statements.
Yeah, and then, just to go over a soft pull, that means if you're going online and checking your own credit score, that's going to be a soft pull. If you are pre-qualified for something, like you get something in the mail that says you're pre-qualified, and so the bank is going to check it, that's a soft pull. Or if you go get a new job and they're going to do a background check, that's also a soft pull, and those drop off pretty quickly, and so they don't really hurt your score at all.
Yeah, so don't be worried about logging in and looking at your credit score
and
stuff.
The way where we go back to is, okay, well, does opening cards hurt me? Well, I mean, like Sal and I are, yes, we churn cards, but because we kind of leapfrog back and forth, and we usually take 3 months to meet the spend and get the bonus. So, like, that means I opened one card. It took 3 months to open it or to meet the spend. And then Sal's going to do the card, so that's another 3 months. So I'm really not going to open another card for probably like another 4 or 6 months.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you're really looking at like 3 hard pulls on credit cards for me a year. That's not going to do
Yeah, so if you have a partner, it's
Mm-hmm.
really good to leapfrog, and it helps. So that's something that we do. So I think we're at 90%.
Yep.
And so the final 10% is we're going to look at the variety of your credit. What kind of credit you're carrying and I think I referred to it earlier. You have like installment loans, and I refer to the cards as like a revolving credit because the balances will go up and down, the minimum payments will go up and down, the rates will go up and down, whereas installment is stuff like mortgages, car payments. You have a preset installment plan, how much you're paying over how many terms. So you have 2 different kinds. One affects the other insofar as if you are handling your credit cards really well, they could potentially push up your overall credit score, right? And if your credit score is pushed above anything of a 740, you're going to qualify for some of the better and best rates on those installment notes. So if you're walking around with a 550 credit score and then you go to apply for a car, you're going to be looking at double-digit interest rates most likely. But like, let's say you have a bunch of cards that you've opened and you've been, managing the payments and the balances and stuff, and now it's pushed your credit score above 740. Now you're sitting at like a 760. Well, when you go apply for that installment loan, you're going to end up having a lot better time, like as far as finding good payment terms and interest rates. But the installment loans are also affected by your level of income. So that's a whole different calculation and a whole different discussion in and of itself. So we won't get too far into that.
And so to tie it back to, should I open a credit card? Well, I think, or will it hurt my credit score if I'm opening a credit card? It just means like, okay, do you plan on getting a car soon or a home loan?
Yeah.
If you are, then maybe, you want to not get a credit card 6 months before you're about to apply for a loan.
Yeah.
Just so that hard pull, if you're doing more than one application, it won't affect you.
Yeah, and it depends too, like on where your score is sitting. Like I had applied for about 3 cards, 3 months before we got this house, and it didn't affect the rates and stuff we got at all. But that's because my score was already well into the 800s. So was Christie's. So me opening those cards didn't do much.
Yeah.
But I think something that we might have failed to mention so far though is a lot of this is dependent on you as a person.
Yeah.
If you can handle your spending correctly, if you know in your heart of hearts that that you are a spendthrift,
you just don't trust yourself with a card.
Yeah, then don't do it, man.
Yeah.
Like that's probably the best advice I think we could ever give anyone is
Yeah.
if you know that you're gonna get a card and max it out, don't get the card, man.
Whether you don't trust yourself or you just feel like I'm not an organized person, because yes, opening credit cards won't hurt your credit score if you're doing it correctly. But, if you're disorganized or forgetful and you forget payments and now you're going to have a late payment or you're tempted to buy stuff, then it is going to hurt you.
Yeah.
So you got to just really trust your own personality.
Yeah. So that goes back to the long answer. I said probably not if you're doing things right. But some cards have like awesome benefits and they are worth getting, they're worth opening. And I think that's a good segue into what we mentioned, which was our review of the Chase Sapphire Reserve.
Right. And because we had a listener last time.
Yeah.
Because last time we recommended for somebody who's just getting into, trying to save up credit card points, we said start off with the Chase Sapphire Preferred card. Mm-hmm. And we had a listener say like, hey, well, I looked at the Chase Sapphire Reserve and those benefits looked way better.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, that's true. The Chase Sapphire Reserve has a $450 annual fee, and that tends to kind of shock people. But you're right. The benefits on that card, like, offset that fee, like,
majorly.
Make it
Is majorly
almost
a word?
zero. Majorly, yeah.
Majorly.
Okay, so one benefit right off the bat is that you get a $300 travel credit.
Right.
So right there, $400 or $450.
You're getting it back. You're getting $300 out of that $450.
So that
back.
brings it down to $150.
Right. So
annual fee.
So that's an awesome benefit. The other is what we mentioned at the top of the episode. You get it'll pay for either your TSA pre-check or your global entry.
So that's $100 credit.
And those TSA pre-check and global entry, remember, that's not per flight. That's something that you get. You actually get a card and stuff, and that's good for like 5 years.
Yeah.
So if you get the reserve, you can go in and apply for the global entry, go to your local airport, go through the interview process. When they charge you the $100 for that, Chase will apply a $100 credit.
Yeah.
And so then you have global entry. You can travel anywhere in the world and come back and you're skipping the line,
Yeah, so
or
that-
domestically or whatever.
So within that first year of opening that reserve card, that's already $400
$400 out of the $450
taken care of.
And then so the other thing is a priority pass.
Yes.
Christy loves the priority pass.
Okay, so priority pass, what is that? That gives you access to lounges in the airports. In most airports, you'll have at least access to a lounge, and it's just awesome. If you have a long layover, you don't have to wait at the gate where it's crowded and noisy, and the lounges usually have complimentary drinks and food, and depending on the airport, yeah, some lounges are way nicer than others.
Yeah.
And then if there isn't a lounge, then sometimes it'll be a restaurant.
Yeah.
And I mean, that sometimes is even better than a lounge because you get a huge discount on the food. It was in JFK.
We were in JFK, and I forgot the name of the restaurant, but we were in JFK, and the terminal that we were at did not have a lounge. But I pulled up the Priority Pass app, and I looked it up, found the terminal, and it's like, oh, but they have a restaurant. They have a restaurant, and it says that I'll get $25 off of the bill, and my guest will also get $25 off of the bill. So we'll get $50 off of our bill at this restaurant at JFK Airport. And Chris said, oh, we should go. And me, being the pessimist I was like, no way, we're probably going to go, and every single plate in there is going to be $500, and $25
He's
is
like, it's
nothing.
not going to work.
It's whack. It's a trick.
Yeah.
We go, and no, they had very reasonably priced items on the menu.
Where we had to like even order more
Yeah.
than what we wanted. Like we had to look and actually order enough where like the discount would
So she got a beer, I got a scotch, we ordered an appetizer, each of us got an entree, so the bill came out to $80, and yeah, they took $50 off of the bill. When you're thinking about, you're getting, when you first open that card, 300 travel credit, so it brings it down the fee to 150. Priority Pass costs, you can buy it on your own without a card, but it costs $100 a year. So the benefits of the Priority Pass you're getting, so that's $100 off, now you're at $50, and then you get the global entry. Now you're making $50 on that first year that you open the card. You're making $50. And then you get 3 times points anytime you use that card for dining out.
Yeah.
So 3 times points is really, when you're looking at Chase, I would say like 4.5% back, like cash value back when you use on travel. Because when you redeem those points, you get like a 1.5 redemption. The math is weird. Anyway,
so when we're not working on a new card, like when we're not working on a card to meet the spend for a bonus, we're using the reserve as our daily card.
Yeah.
So like we don't use our debit cards at all anymore. If we're not working on a card, then we're using the Chase Reserve as our debit card, and we still pay off those balances weekly or whatever. How long have we had the reserve now? Like 2-3 years?
We got it right when it came out in like 2017.
Yeah,
because they
so
used
2
to have
years.
because it used to have a huge. Now the bonus is like 50.
Right, so
50,000
it's 50,000
for 4.
points when you spend
4,000 in 3 months or something like that. Yeah, so I mean it's definitely a good card.
So even after that first year, it's still a good card to have in your wallet as a daily card. That's what we use when we're not working on something. And then other benefits include no foreign transaction fees. And then I think there's like travel insurance that you can look into as well with it. So it's really a good card.
Yeah, and we'll probably mention that stuff maybe in a later episode when we're talking about things to be aware of when you're traveling internationally. But yeah, that's our review on the Chase Sapphire Reserve. So,
and to round up all of this, we're going to go into
Tip of the day. So we always...
a round up or wrap up.
Wrap up, round up. Anyway, so tip of the day. So we like finishing off these episodes with a tip of the day. And so, Christy, you will have 37 seconds.
Okay.
37.25 seconds to give us what is your tip of the day.
Okay, well, since this episode was all about really how credit cards affect your credit score, I think we might have mentioned it, but when you're about to start, credit card churning maybe, or opening cards for the first time.
Even if it's just one card. Right?
It's a good idea to go and look at your credit report. And so go online, you can get a free one, and just right off the bat, you'll know how many credit cards you already have open. Maybe you don't even remember opening a card. You'll know just how many lines of credit you have open, which will then give you an idea of your credit utilization, your average age. So all the categories we talked about, go to your credit report, and you'll be able to really narrow down where you're at with each of these. And you'll know, like, okay, I'm in good standing or not, or what can I work on? If you have a low credit score, then you can really look and be like, oh, it's low because of this, so I need to work on this.
And I'm going to piggyback off of Christy's tip because I am not clever at all. That's actually really good advice, though. Pull your credit report. If you already have a credit card, check to see if that credit card actually gives you access to your credit report for free, because some of them offer that as a benefit. I think like the Barclay Red Card is one of them that I know gives you unlimited access to your credit report.
I believe the city cards do.
The city cards do too then. Yeah, so you can you can log in and actually pull your report there. If you don't have access to that, there's really not a need to pay for it, because you can use other websites like Credit Karma and stuff, but they may spam you with a bunch of ads and you'll pull your report.
But you still get it for free.
You still get it for free. And then there's the one that the government says that the bureaus have to give us once a year for free, and that's annualcreditreport.com.
Right.
Don't get it confused with my free annual credit report. It's just plain Jane annualcreditreport.com. You can go there, pull your report once a year. It may not give you your score, what everybody's focused on that number, right? It doesn't give you your number, but it'll at least tell you, hey, do you have late payments? Do you have outstanding debts? It'll give you a picture of what your credit looks like. And from there, you can start working on fixing it if it needs fixing. And if it doesn't need fixing, everything we talked about, everything's green across the board, everything looks good, then you can just assume that your score is pretty high and apply for a card from there.
And it won't hurt you. So if you have a high credit score and you're like, no, but I don't want to mess up my really good credit score, it won't.
Yeah, it's a soft inquiry, like we mentioned earlier. So don't worry about it. But I think that covers everything today. Do you have anything maybe that we might have missed?
I think we covered it all. Again, if there's anything that you want more information on, definitely ask us. Or we're also going to put reference links in the show notes, because it is a lot of stuff. And you can go more into detail in some of this stuff.
Yeah.
But we'd be here forever. So yeah, there's many, many websites out there that give you lots of information on this stuff. And so we will have those links below. Thank you so much for listening.
Leave a like. Leave a review.
Comment if you're listening on one of the podcast apps, or if you're watching this on YouTube, same thing. Leave a like, subscribe, comment. It helps us a lot.
And we will not mind if you share the content. I think that's something else.
Yeah. If you would like to see or use the spreadsheet that Sal has made that helps us keep track of everything, send an email to the lionturtlepodcast@gmail.com and just say, hey, I want to see your spreadsheet. We'll email it to you.
Yeah, maybe I might not send it right away. I'll have to gussy it up a little bit if I'm sure. I just have it. It's very plain Jane, bare bones right now, but it's useful to me, and yeah, I'd be happy to share that.
Yeah, we're just just something to share. If you guys want something to help you get started or keep you organized, we are more than willing to share that with you. Just send us an email, and we will email it to you right back.
Okay. Well, with that being said, thanks for coming back to the Lion Turtle Podcast, guys, and we'll see you later. Bye.